The View co-host Sunny Hostin's husband, Emmanuel Hostin, has been accused of federal insurance fraud.
You can't have a felon, a liar, a serial cheater.
Sunny Hostin, her husband accused of committing federal insurance fraud in a lawsuit. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases.
I just sensed that there could be something in my family history that would be disappointing.
The View co-host Sunny Host's husband Emmanuel Host has been accused of federal insurance fraud. You can't have a felon, a liar, a serial cheater. Sunny Hust, her husband, accused of committing federal insurance fraud in a lawsuit. The lawsuit alleges Hust knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases. I just sensed that there could be something in my family history that would be disappointing. Sunny Host might need to check her own house, because her husband Dr. Emmanuel Host just got caught up in a serious fraud scandal, and when I say serious I mean multi-million-dollar insurance fraud, possible RICO charges, and an entire operation that's now under investigation. Now Dr. Hostin isn't just some random doctor. He's a Harvard-educated orthopedic surgeon working with high-profile clients and bringing in massive money, like the kind of cash that most people dream about. So why would someone that's successful risk it all by getting involved in a fraud scheme? Well, success doesn't stop people from wanting more. When folks get greedy, it's not about needing money, it's about wanting more than they should have. And according to these allegations, Dr. Hostin was running an entire fraudulent operation. Medical fraud is a billion-dollar industry, and some doctors think they're untouchable. They figure if they've got the credentials, the connections and the power, they can outsmart the system. But the feds don't play about this stuff. If they're coming after you, it means they've been watching for a while and they've got receipts. Now let's get into the real mess, because this isn't just some little tax evasion case or a billing mistake. Dr. Host is accused of performing unnecessary surgeries on patients just to cash in on insurance payouts. Yeah, you heard that right. People walked into his office thinking they were getting real medical treatment, but in reality they were just part of a scam to milk the system. Imagine going to the doctor for a knee problem or a shoulder issue thinking you're in good hands, only to find out later that you didn't even need the surgery. He was allegedly cutting people open just to bill insurance companies for massive payouts, and it gets worse. According to reports, it wasn't just Dr. Hostin acting alone. There were allegedly fake medical records, falsified procedures, and a big network of doctors and hospital staff. And here's where it gets even more serious. Authorities are throwing around RICO charges now. If you're not familiar, RICO laws are used to take down organized crime rings. We're talking the same kind of charges used against mob bosses and drug cartels. When the government brings out RICO, it means they believe this was a criminal enterprise, not just one person committing fraud, but a whole system of people working together to commit crimes on a massive scale. And that's what makes this case so wild. Because if Dr. Host is convicted under RICO, he's looking at serious jail time. It does not look well when your name ends up with 200 people in a RICO investigation. This is the biggest investigation since Giuliani shook the tree and a bunch of mobsters fell out. Right, this is big stuff. All right, y'all, this is the part everybody wants to know. How much did Sunny know? Because when your husband is allegedly running a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme, people are going to have questions, and the internet is already side-eyeing her like, girl, you're on The View every day calling out politicians, corrupt CEOs, and Hollywood celebrities, but you didn't know what was going on in your own house. Let's not forget Sunny is a former federal prosecutor. This is literally what she used to do: investigate crimes, expose financial fraud, and take people down for it. She has got years of experience reading between the lines, catching people in lies and putting criminals behind bars. So the idea that her own husband was pulling off a whole fraud operation and she had no clue, people aren't buying it now. To be fair, there's no evidence that Sunny was directly involved with her husband, no documents linking her to the fraud, no evidence that she helped cover anything up, and if you ask her, she'll probably say, "This was my husband's business, not mine." But let's be real, married couples talk about money, especially when we're talking about big money, and this wasn't just a few extra dollars here and there, this was millions. There's no way that money was flowing in and out of their accounts without her noticing. And then there's houses, cars, vacations, designer clothes, and everything else. Sunny has been living a pretty luxurious life for years, so the question is, did she ever stop to ask where all this money was coming from, or did she just not want to know? Because that's another angle. Some people choose to stay in the dark. They don't ask questions because deep down they already know the answer won't be good. Mostly Everything that's been said, I mean, we know that only about 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system, and doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life to do right before this whole fraud scandal hit the news. Sunny and her husband filed for bankruptcy, and we're not talking about a little financial trouble, we're talking millions of dollars in debt. Reports are saying that they've been quietly selling off assets, transferring money, and trying to move things around before everything crashes down. Now call me crazy, but that sounds a lot like they knew these fraud charges were coming. Filing for bankruptcy could be a way to protect their money before the courts start seizing assets, and people are starting to catch on, because think about it, when do people usually file for bankruptcy? When they've hit rock bottom and have no other options. But before these allegations came out, there was no sign that they both were struggling financially. So what happened now? Well, maybe they saw the writing on the wall. Maybe they knew that once this fraud investigation came out, their entire financial empire was at risk. And here's another thing: bankruptcy can sometimes protect certain assets from being taken in lawsuits. So if they filed early enough, they might have been trying to protect their wealth from the feds. How has this changed? Knowing what you're hearing now, I think at first I was deeply disappointed. This is the same Sunny who's been calling out politicians, CEOs, celebrities, and public figures for their shady behavior for years. She's built a whole career on speaking truth to power, standing up for justice, and exposing corruption, but now it's happening in her own home. And the biggest question everyone's asking is, where is all that accountability now? Because let's be honest, if this was someone else, Sunny would be the first one calling for investigations, for justice, for consequences, and people aren't letting her forget it. A person commented saying, "Let's see if she'll talk about this. Run your mouth now." Another one added, "She is just as guilty as her husband." Meanwhile, clips of her past statements about financial fraud and corruption are being resurfaced. There's even a viral TikTok comparing her old speeches on white-collar crime to her silence now. I just thought, where is the outrage there? And I think people are talking about it now finally. Well, this has got to be awkward for her co-hosts, because let's be real, they live for calling out scandals like this. They sit at that table and drag people for their hypocrisy, their business dealings, their excuses, but now one of their own is in the hot seat. What are they going to do? Are they going to ignore it? Are they going to pretend like it's not happening? Because you already know, if this were about someone else, they'd be talking about it on air. But here's the real question: will Sunny stand by her man, or will she distance herself to protect her career? Because if this case gets even messier, she might have no choice but to cut ties and save herself. And let's talk about Dr. Hostin. Because if these allegations are true, he's looking at serious jail time, and this isn't just about him. If this was a RICO-level scam, there could be even more arrests coming. Doctors, hospital staff, insurance agents, anyone involved could go down, and if investigators start following the money trails, Sunny's finances could come under investigation. Well, do you guys really think Sunny had no clue what was going on, or was she just looking the other way to keep the lifestyle? And what about her job on The View? Is she going to ride this out, or is ABC going to push her out to avoid the mess?